Hey y'all, welcome back. You are listening to This with Chris show, where I like to talk about business and challenges and culture and faith, of course, family. And occasionally I like to turn my dining room into a federally unregulated nap facility. So let's get right into today's episode. So first off, today I'm talking about daddy daycare. And yes, I know that it's not babysitting when it's your own kid, right? I got corrected approximately 17 times when I jokingly said that at the office and to other people about babysitting my daughter earlier this week. It's called parenting, and I'm fully aware. But when you block your calendar, cancel optional meetings, brace yourself for snack negotiations, and sort of mentally prepare like you are deploying overseas, it truly does feel like babysitting, except you don't get paid for it, right? So earlier this week, I worked from home on Monday and Tuesday because my daughter was home for this entire week. She's sort of in between her daycare situation right now, and she starts a brand new pre-K on Monday, which we are so unbelievably excited about, her mommy and I. So new school, right? She's going to get a new backpack. She's going to get a new little personality upgrade, hopefully. No, she's awesome. But before I get into any further into this episode, I'd like to give a huge shout out to my in-laws who are absolute champions. They literally cut their road trip short. They were on vacation and came home early to help watch her, not babysit, for the remainder of the week, so that I could get back into the office. And that, my friends, is elite grandparent behavior. If it was a fantasy sport for grandparents, there'd be first round picks every time. But those first 2 days, right, Monday and Tuesday, for me, that was daddy daycare. And let me tell you something, you guys, I was exhausted. Oh my God, that is why there was no episode for the last few days, okay? Because I was exhausted. Not because I ran out of things to say, because you all know me. That has never happened in the history of my existence, okay? I always have something to say. But because between all the nonstop meetings, because I was working from home during that time, and running this, 2-day daddy daycare preschool experience out of my home, I had literally nothing left in my tank, okay? And yet I must also proclaim that I wouldn't trade it for anything. So let me walk you through it, okay? So Monday morning starts out like any other work from home day, which I've done in my career for many years, right? I worked from home or worked remotely for many years. I think at least, gajillion years. But what that includes is me, starting my day out, listening to my podcast episodes, Bloomberg News and others. I'll drink my coffee, I look at my calendar, I'll answer emails and Slack notifications. It's an email avalanche and a Slack notification avalanche every morning, okay? Except this time, instead of silence, I hear, "Daddy, what are we doing today?" We build forts. And when I say build forts, I mean we disrupted the structural integrity of our home, specifically our living room, right? There were couch cushions relocated. I forget what we call it. They're called nuggets, right? We brought the nuggets from the playroom upstairs down to the living room. We moved the couches and all the little pieces of furniture. We deployed pillows strategically. She had a blueprint in her mind, and I was the unpaid contractor. In between meetings, we played dolls, and I have discovered, or baby dolls, that there are politics in doll culture, right? There are alliances, there are betrayals, there are wardrobe changes that would probably put New York Fashion Week to shame, okay? At one point, I was instructed that my doll, the baby doll that I was provisioned, was not allowed in the castle, aka fort, because the baby doll didn't say please. So I said, please. Because when you're in daddy daycare, you guys, right, you respect the monarchy. I forget whether it was Monday or Tuesday, but we built a movie theater, not theater, theater. We built a movie theater. We put blankets over the windows, lights were off, tickets were required, stuffed animals seated in rows. I was denied entry to the theater that I built, right, for failing to bring adequate popcorn. Accountability matters, right? We had breakfast, then a second breakfast, then a snack. Then, and this is all happening while I'm working, okay? Daddy, I'm hungry, but not hungry. What does that even mean, right? Which I guess it means she wants food, but doesn't want to admit she wants food because she already knew we had eaten a lot. Then we had lunch. Then there was a grace period followed by unlimited snacks, right? We had potty breaks that required a lot of executive oversight. We had recess in the backyard where we played soccer. We had a little picnic. We threw rocks at Daddy. We practiced golf swings. Of course, I want my daughter to play golf like my son, but she kind of whacked the driver against the fence and made some marks on the fence, so that was fun. We played Play-Doh, and if you know anything about me, I'm not a big fan of Play-Doh. We made some Play-Doh sculptures that look like abstract art from a gallery that you're looking at, like trying to pretend you understand what the shape is. And if you don't get the shape right, by the way, that could result in a meltdown. We didn't have any meltdowns. That was amazing. I think on day 2, on Tuesday, I had like literally back-to-back meetings, and I have this huge whiteboard upstairs. I brought the whiteboard downstairs and got out the dry erase markers and let her just scribble. Then she wanted to turn the dining, so she sat on the dining table to kind of look at or play on this whiteboard. And then I sort of turned the dining table into a napping station so I could just see her right behind me. And of course I had to put the virtual background on all the Zoom meetings because otherwise you could see her like sleeping and playing and whatever on the dining table. So a few cases I forgot and I blurred the background, but it's the whole thing. The original design purpose of the table was not to turn it into a bed, but it turned into a bed. Okay, because innovation thrives in chaos, right? And Zoom meetings were being interrupted, and Daddy, I need a refill on my apple juice. Daddy, can you watch me do this? Daddy, I need help. It was just nonstop. You guys had to have been there. And a lot of you, the dads that are listening have been in this position, I'm sure. But here's what's wild, right? I didn't mind doing any of it. Not one single time. And it surprised me. I'm sorry, I gotta sneeze. This will be the first episode that you hear that I sneezed. Anyway, the house was a complete disaster. And when I say it was a disaster, it was an absolute disaster. And when my wife came home and my son came home from school, man, they had to help clean up the mess. So thank you, Shannon and Liam. But even though it was an absolute disaster, and I'm sort of a neat freak, we had so much fun, right? And then yesterday, I went back into the office. I drove down the highway. It's like a 15-minute drive to my office, and I started missing her more and more as every minute went by. I missed her so much, immensely, okay, that it was quiet, right, in my office. It usually is. My car was quiet. The office was efficient but quiet. And I found myself thinking about the previous 2 days, which brings me to why this episode even exists. Sorry. Because this wasn't just about 2 days at home, right? This was about redemption. So let me rewind a little bit, right? Sorry. So the first 2 years, 2.5 years at least, of her life, right? My daughter's life. She is 3.5, by the way, if I haven't mentioned that already. So you can start doing some math. I traveled for the first 2.5 years of her life. At first, it was manageable, right? Because I think I didn't start traveling until she was about 6 months old. or at least not frequently. And then, from 6 months to 2.5 years old, so 2 full years, I was gone traveling at least 2 to 3 weeks every month. Now, it wasn't like all of a sudden I was traveling 2 or 3 weeks a month, and majority of the time I was traveling to my office that was in Orange County, California. But especially when you look at the aggregate of how much I was traveling, the peaks really came during conference season, and so typically between I would say August through October, November, it was just constant. There was a month that I was only home 2 weekends. That was it, right? So I think it was October of 24. I think I was home 6 days that whole month. Yeah, that's not occasional travel, right? That's partial residency. I took partial residency in my own home, at least that month, and the months preceding and following. I was building career momentum, right? And that was what I was doing. I was scaling responsibility. I was chasing opportunity. And while I was doing all of that, something else was happening here at home, right? Her bond, my daughter's bond with her mom, became rock solid, and I love that, right? It became unbreakable. It became predictable. It was that security blanket, and I, on the other hand, was intermittent, right? I was the suitcase guy. I was the FaceTime dad. It was kind of cute. We laugh about it still, that she would always say, I'll say, do you know where Daddy is? It's like, Daddy-fornia. Instead of California, she would always say Fornia. But I was the daddy, that daddy will be home soon kind of daddy, okay? She didn't mind that I wasn't here, which sounds super convenient for me, right? But over time, that starts stinging. When I switched companies last spring, end of April, I guess beginning of May, I did that so I could be home more. I assumed proximity would automatically then create that connection with my daughter. But guess what? It did not. It didn't do that. She didn't bond with me immediately. In fact, this last year has been super tough as a dad, right? Because she continues still to prefer mom for everything, right? For snacks, for bedtime, for books, for comfort, for playtime. And at first it was funny, right? Because I could say, oh, I'm just going to go to the gym. I can do whatever I want, right? Oh, she doesn't want me. Cool. I'll just sit down and relax and watch some news and read a book or whatever. And I read a lot of books last year. In fact, I read, I think 56 books last year. So that was fun. And I was only able to do that because she just didn't want anything to do with me, right? Oh, she only wants mom to read? Great. No problem. But eventually, all just kind of piled on and started weighing on me, and it hurt. I wasn't vocal about it, but it hurt. It stung. Not because she was doing anything wrong, right? She's 3.5 years old. It was not malintent or intentional. She wasn't doing it on purpose. She had become wired that way in my absence. Kids bond through repetition, through presence, through predictability. And I hadn't logged enough hours and reps, you guys, okay? You cannot outsource bonding. It doesn't just miraculously happen. You can't make it up with, showering them with gifts or, whatever, right? You can't compress any of it, especially into just a weekend or 2 days. It takes time. It's taken a full year, a year of consistency, a year of leaning in, a year of pushing past the rejection, a year of choosing to show up even when I wasn't the perfect parent or the preferred parent. And then those 2 days, right, 48 hours, it wasn't full 48 hours, but I guess 10 hours every day, something shifted. And it wasn't dramatic. It really wasn't. It wasn't like all of a sudden she's like, oh, Daddy, I love you so much more now. And you know what? Let me state, it's not a competition. I'm not trying to make her prefer me or love me more than her mommy, right? But what happened wasn't dramatic. It was real. There was eye contact. There was laughter that lingered, like belly laughter, right? There was her choosing to sit next to me. When we had an Amazon multiple Amazon deliveries. I don't know how to slow that down, but they'll come to the front door, and she was sitting on the couch, and at one point, and I was in the kitchen on my laptop working, and she heard someone at the front door, and our Ring doorbell or whatever, like, buzzed. I don't know what it did. I maybe even rang the doorbell. I can't remember, but next thing you know, she just got up the couch and she goes, "Daddy!" And she screams, and I have a little swivel stool at the kitchen counter that I was working from, and she jumps on me. She was reaching for me for safety. She doesn't typically do that, at least not with me. She would scream for her mommy first. There was though she knew that mommy wasn't home, she would typically have reached for mommy. But she was like, "Daddy, come here," right? Without hesitation. And it truly felt like a breakthrough. And again, not because I need validation from a 3.5-year-old, but because connection had finally clicked. And it only happened because I gave her my undivided attention. Now, again, granted, I was working all day for the last 2 days, those 2 days. But I would go off camera and like, "Hey, you okay?" Or and let me also say, when I did work from home, when I wasn't traveling in recent history, I was up here in this room, which was originally my home office, and now it's the podcast studio, but away from the family. This is like the room in the corner of the house upstairs, furthest from any other human being, right? There's no way, like, you would have to intentionally be coming into the office, into this area of the house to find me. You don't just walk by as like, "Oh, there's that," right? Like, I was hidden in this office. And when I was working from home back in those days, well, if I wasn't traveling, I was working 12, 14 hours a day, right? I was like from 7 a.m. to like 9 p.m. I was up here. I would eat here. That's the life I lived. Weekends, whatever. But being home with her in that moment, last 2 days, those 2 days, it provided, focus, right? There was no half listening. There was no scrolling. It was just presence. And it made me think about high achieving dads. Okay, we pride ourselves on provision. If you're like me, okay, I pride myself on provision. I grind, I build, I scale. Okay, that's just the way I operate. We provide safety and security. That's my job as a father, as a husband. And all of that matters for all high-achieving dads, okay? But guess what? Presence, it matters too, equally, if not more. You can provide everything financially for your children and still be relationally bankrupt, okay? Let me say that for the people in the back. You can provide everything financially and still be relationally bankrupt. That's not condemnation. That is awareness, because I have lived it. I every day I justified it to myself, to my spouse, to anyone that would listen. I justified it, right? By saying things like, "It's just this season. I'm building something as a legacy for my children." And all of that was true. But childhood, guess what? That is a season too. And if I'm realizing anything now, it's moving fast. Time is moving fast. At a blink of an eye, my little son, I look at him sometimes, not sometimes, a lot, and remember this little tiny little baby. And he is 7, and he is making very smart, adult-like decisions for himself today by investing and saving, and we'll talk about that in another episode. But while I was out there building other people's billion-dollar companies, right, not my own, my daughter, she was here building her understanding of who dad is. And in my absence, her understanding came from questions, right? Is he safe? Is he consistent? Is he even fun? Is he available? Those questions don't get answered with money. They get answered with memories and moments. Daddy Daycare reminded me of something deeply, deeply profound, right? Exhaustion from parenting is very different than the work exhaustion that really drains you. Parenting exhaustion fills you, right? Fills your heart while it, at the same time, it drains you. Something I've never understood, right? It's the most paradoxical feeling that you can have as a parent, and probably ever, okay? I was so tired, but I was alive. I was worn out, but I was connected. And she doesn't care about titles, right? She doesn't care about downloads and how many views this podcast gets, or what advisory boards I sit on, or what philanthropy that I might get involved in, or what business I'm building or startup I'm involved in, or what I'm buying and investing in, or whatever, right? All she cares about is I sit on the floor, that I can make silly faces with her, that I will refill her apple juice without sighing. And here's something else, right? Breakthroughs happen in concentrated presence. 2 days of full undivided attention made that needle move more than those months of distracted coexistence that I just thought it was going to happen naturally. That is so powerful. Okay, how many of us are physically present but mentally somewhere else, right? While your phone is buzzing, while your email is open, while you're checking your social media, and your mind is racing. We wonder why connection feels so thin. It's because attention is the currency of love. You know what? I read a lot. I love reading now. I didn't used to read a lot, but in the last year I started reading. I said that earlier, but even when we were pregnant with our first child, our son Liam, we bought all these parenting books. I remember my brother-in-law gave me the funniest parenting book that was like, it was like how to operate a child. Like it was like written like a manual, like for how to hook up a VCR. Sorry, a DVD player. Sorry, you probably might not even know what those two things are, but you get what I'm saying, right? But nothing taught me. I never read anywhere about attention is the currency of love, okay? And we're spending that currency everywhere else on other things. This week has forced me to slow down. That's why I didn't purposefully, and I was exhausted, record any episodes until today, okay? I wanted to spend that time really processing those 2 days and what it meant to me, and that's why I'm sharing it with you, okay? I had to get on her wavelength. I had to see the world at 3 feet tall, right? Where bubbles are magic, where forts are castles, where soccer in the backyard feels like a World Cup final. Look, Daddy, I kick it so hard. Joy is simple, right? And we tend to overcomplicate it all. Driving back to the office yesterday, I realized that, right? I realized something, that I missed her, like I said, immensely, but I also missed the chaos, right? I missed the noise. I missed the constant interruptions. And that's when it truly hit me, okay? Because for a long time, I thought, and I've always thought, that my role as a dad, as chauvinistic as this might sound, is to build, okay? To provide, to scale. But maybe my most important role as a dad, as a husband, and is to be present, right? Not perfectly present. No one can be. No one's perfect, but intentionally present. And that's where. And I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and I've been on one already. But we have our daddy-daughter dance, and I'm stepping into it slightly differently than I thought I was going to, right? Not as the dad trying to catch up, but the dad who is here, right? I have my suit ready. I went and bought a new suit last weekend, and her favorite color is like pink and purple, so it's kind of like a fuchsia color shirt. Got my shoes polished. My heart is open. And if she steps on my feet, I'll laugh. We've been practicing the last couple of evenings dancing in the kitchen, right? I'm not a big fan of the Pink Pony Club Girl, whatever song, but that's her favorite song right now. But because for years I had been stepping out, right? So she steps on my feet, cool. This episode isn't about guilt if you're a parent that or dad that travels a lot or whatever, but what it is, I suppose, is this episode is about choosing presence. It's about realizing that success at home does not ever happen accidentally. It is 1000% intentional. It's scheduled. It's prioritized. Daddy Daycare, you guys, was messy. It's not like actually, it was pretty, as messy as the movie. I forget who was in it. I think it was Eddie Murphy, maybe, or I don't know who was in it. But it was so loud. If any of our neighbors are working from home, which I know a couple of them do, they heard us because it was loud. It was like, we were running through the house like insane people, right? I don't know how much apple juice consumption for a 3.5-year-old is normal, but I'm pretty sure she drank like a gallon a day of apple juice. Maybe you want to put in the comments if that is or isn't normal. And the Play-Doh cleanup, you know what? Shout out to Play-Doh. If anyone brings Play-Doh in this house, typically it gets packed up and gets sent to Mimi and Popeye's house or her grandparents' house, because I'm not a big fan of Play-Doh. But I have to give a shout out to Play-Doh. I don't even know who owns the company Play-Doh. Is it just Play-Doh? I don't know. But they've gotten quite innovative on their containers and all this stuff, and it's kind of cool. It's not as messy as I remember, but I was scared, right, about the Play-Doh. But the last 2 days, again, it was sacred, right? And sometimes the most sacred things look chaotic. If you're a dad listening to this and you are grinding hard, good for you. Building something is good. Chasing opportunity is amazing. But also, I see you, right? Keep building. But don't forget to log those emotional steps with your spouse and your children. Don't forget to sit on the floor. Don't forget that your child's perception of you, it's being formed daily. Legacy is not built in boardrooms. It's built in your home, in your living rooms, at your dining table. Okay? And I almost missed that. I made a conscious decision to make that shift. But I'm not saying go quit your job or change careers or change companies. That's not what I'm saying, because if you're a LinkedIn recruiter, you probably appreciate that. But it's the truth is that you have to do it for yourself, and no one's going to do it for you. And again, not saying that you have to switch your job to make a connection with your children, but you have to make some changes in your life to accommodate for that presence, for those opportunities to connect. So yeah, there's no episode probably tomorrow, but I'll try to record some over the weekend. Maybe a recap of Daddy-Daughter Dance. And there wasn't any episodes the last few days because I was building something more important than content, right? I had been building connection. And I'd take 100 downloads for that versus thousands of downloads, whatever we get today, right? Let's not get reckless, but you get the point, right? Daddy Daycare, and I wasn't babysitting, it's my child, I get it. But Daddy Daycare is officially closed this week. And thank you, Mimi and Popeye, for watching our daughter for the next few days. But the lessons, man, those are permanent. More to come after that Daddy-Daughter Dance. And that's all for the episode. I know it's a little bit long-winded, but I just wanted to get that off my chest because it was, it's not, hopefully, I have these more, right? These aha moments, but this was truly an aha moment, a personal one, and I think many of you could relate because we're all out there trying to do our best, do more and do more and do more. Meanwhile, the unsaid, friction that it creates within your own home, it goes unnoticed, and sometimes it's too late before you can fix it. So anyway. Guys, thank you for listening to This with Chris show. If this episode really meant anything, something, sparked something in you, I appreciate you for listening, right? Subscribe on Spotify and on YouTube and Apple Podcasts and anywhere you stream. Share it with a dad. Actually, go to Pandora. Pandora is my next place I want to conquer, okay? So help me conquer Pandora. Share it with a dad who needs to hear this. And remember, build boldly, lead faithfully, and never forget that your greatest legacy is your family, man. It's your wife and or your husband, and your kids. And they're waiting for you at home. Anyway, as always, I like to end the episodes with I'll see you next time, and I love y'all. Bye.